We are on the top of Samach Gimel Amud Aleph 63a with a very interesting Daf Yomi. We know that the Nazir's period of Nazirus ends after he goes to the mikvah, gets a haircut, he goes to the mikvah, brings his sacrifices, sprinkles the blood, and gets a haircut. And he's over. But let's say, says our Mishnah, Nazir Shegileach, he got his haircut to end his Nazirus. He cut off all the hair off his head. And then, no, the lo shutame. And then afterwards, he finds out, actually, when you were, before your haircut, you had touched a dead body. He didn't know. He had gone over a dead body. He had driven over it or some way. So im tuma yodua, if the tuma was known, meaning if it could have been known, if it was visible, soser, then it knocks out his nazirus. And we'll see, does it knock out 7 days or 30 days, but he's not done yet. V'im tumas tahom, but if it was a tuma of tahom, what's the tumas tahom? So Rashi says, then it means, Rashi to Masechah Sukkah says it means any tumah that was not visible. People didn't know where it was. People didn't know where it was. It was covered up. And Tosfos says, not Tosfos, but the Aruch writes that the home is the bones of the people of the flood that had been washed into the home. They've been from the depths, the tumah of the depths. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. The heat was blasting, so I think I shut it. I'm not sure. Okay, so if it was a tumah that was in the depths, in the core of the earth, so to speak, that we don't know about it, so he couldn't have known, or nobody could have known, then Eino Soser. Then if he finds out about it after he cut his hair already, then it does not mess up his count, and his Nazirus is still over. So if it was a known tumah, then he has to go back and repeat parts of his Nazirus. But if it was an unknowable tumah, it doesn't go back. But let's say he finds out about the tumah before he cuts his hair, then benkach or benkach soser. Then it doesn't matter. Either way, he messes up his count. If he finds out about this tumah prior to the haircut, then we don't care if it was to home, he messes up his count. Kate said, the Gemara says, give us an example. Yard with bol b'ma'ara. Let's say he goes down to immerse in a cave. The caves are where their mikvahs were. V'nimtza meis tzaf al pi amara, and he finds that there's a dead body floating by the cave water. So, by the way, the Gemara is going to discuss this more in tomorrow's daf, floating tumah. But under these circumstances, we're going to say it's tamei, because that would be what's called tumah yadua, it was known. But nimtza mishuka b'karka, but if the dead body was buried in the ground, so he couldn't have known about it, then Hama'ara, Nimta Meshuka Bekarka Amara. Let's say it was buried in the cave in the ground of the cave. Then we have to say what was his status. Yard Lahaker Tahar. That if he was in a state of ritual purity, then we're going to maintain that state. We're going to say he's Tahora. We tire, but if he was in a state of ritual impurity, so he went down into the mikvah in order to become purified, we tire Tumas Meis, then we're going to say he's Tameh. We're going to say he's ritually impure. Shecheskas tamei, tamei. Shecheskas tar, tar. We retain the presumptive status that if he was tamei, we retain him as tamei. If there's a tumah of a dead body. And if he was tahor, we're going to retain him as tahor if there was a tumas tahom. And the reason is sheragayim wadavar, because this is the most logical way to assume that there's legs to the matter, that we don't have to be concerned about this tumas tahom. So we see that when do we say tumas tahom is something that we don't have to be worried about? Only in a circumstance it was after he got his haircut. Also, he had been in a presumptive state of tahora, not of tumah. And it was something that was not visible. It was covered down. The rabbis are telling us that there is a concept of tumas tahom, that even though you don't know about it, there's tumah around us that's not visible to us, that there is this almost like alternative universe where we just don't know about things, but there are dead bodies lying underneath the ground that could pop up at us. So never be complacent in our ritual purity status. So Gemara asks, how do we know about this idea of tumas tahom, that if it happens after the haircut, we're not going to become tamei? Where do we know the status that if the tumas tahom, if you become aware of the tumah of the tahom after your haircut, you're not tamei? So I'm Rabbi Eliezer. So we're going to say, he says Rabbi Eliezer, it's based upon the pasuk, this law of tumas tahom doesn't mess up your Nazirus if you find out about it after the haircut. It's based upon the fact that the pasuk says, and if a dead body comes upon him suddenly. So that tells us Allah b'mechuveres. It needs to have been visible to him. That's what Rebbe Lazar says. Reish Lakish says, Amar Kar, it's based upon a pasuk actually relating to the topic du jour, which is Pesach, but relates to Pesach Sheni. If a person becomes Tamei, then he doesn't bring the current Pesach on the first Pesach, he has to wait till a month later on the Pesach Sheni. It says, if a person, when there was the first Pesach coming around, if he was Tamei from a dead body, or if he was on a faraway path. And the Gemara explains that the Tumah has to be like the faraway path, ki derech. It has to be like the path. Ma derech begoloi, just like the faraway path. The Tumah is visible, af kol begoloi. It has to be visible. And the Tumah stone is not visible. Gemara says, but what about the fact? We have a Bryce which says, what is Tumah stone? Kol she'enu makira echad b'sof ha'olam. This is tumah that nobody can know about it. Nobody knows about it, even in the end of the world. There's not a single person who knows about it. But if somebody knows about it in the end of the world, then it doesn't qualify as tumas tahom. Now, I understand this makes sense that nobody can know about it. Then it has to be like the one who says, like it's the derech, like by the Pascal, meaning to say it has to be not be visible. Shapir makes sense that if even one person knows about it, the law of tumas tahom doesn't apply. But according to the one who says it has to be clear to him. Well, if one person knows about it in Japan while he's in Israel, well, it doesn't matter to him. So he still didn't know about it. Should still qualify as tumas tahom. And furthermore, we have another brayso which says that if you find a dead body lying on the road, bitruma tamei, by truma is going to become tamei. We don't. But ben Nazir ubasiyas pesach tahor. That the law of tumas tahom doesn't apply to truma, but applies to the Nazir and the current pesach. We're going to say it's tahor. But ma'ishna. But if it's based upon a pasuk, it's based upon the verse. Why do we care if it's Truma or Pesach or Nazir? So the Gemara therefore comes to a third conclusion, not like Rebbe Lazar who says based on the pasuk of Kliyamus Meisov Peta Pitam, or like Reish Lakish who says it's from the pasuk of V'chi Yeh Tamei Nefesh B'derech Rechoka, but rather it's Tumas Hatom Gemara Gemirla. It's Halacha Moshe Sinai. It's just a law from Moses at Sinai that if there's Tumah in the depths that nobody could have known about it, we're going to say that if you find out about it after you were finished your Nazirus, then we're going to say you are not so ser. You don't mess up your count. So the Gemara says, Imad shelo gilach, that when do we say that the tumas tahom does not make you tamei, does not so ser? If you find out about it after your haircut. But if you find out about it in between your sacrifice and your haircut, even though you already sprinkled the blood for the Nazirus, then we're going to say it is so ser. So Montana, who's the source of our Mishnah, who says that if you find out about the tumas tahom in between the haircut and in between the sacrifice and the haircut, it messes up your Nazirus. Rabbi Yochanan, this is Rabbi Eliezer. This is the position of Rabbi Eliezer, which we had earlier in our Masechta. We had it back on 46a. Damar tiglachas ma'keves. He's the one who says that the haircut is what ends the Nazirus, not the sacrifice. But according to the Rabbanon, they say the sacrifice is what ends in Nazirus. Even before you get the haircut, you're no longer a Nazir. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Bar Chama asked the question, Nidma betoch mulos, achar mulos. Let's say you became tamei. It's not 100% clear if we're talking about from tumas tahom or from just a regular tumah of a dead body. Let's say you became tamei within your Nazirus, but you only found out about it after you finished your Nazirus. You became tamei, you touched your dead body, but you didn't know about it. And then you only find out about it after you're finished your Nazirus. Do we say we follow after when you find out about it? And therefore, when you knew about it, you were after your malos, after you completed your 7 days, after you completed your 30 days. Or do we say, Olo, or not? Now we have to just remind ourselves of this dispute between the Rabbanan and the Rabbi Eliezer back on 16a. What about a Nazir who became Tamei after his Malos? Let's say the Nazir becomes Tamei after his 30 days, but before he brings his sacrifices and cuts his hair. So according to the Rabbanan, even if he comes Tamei after his Malos, he messes up 30 days. Whereas according to Rabbi Eliezer, if he becomes Tamei after the Malos, he messes up only 7 days that he has to wait to become purified. So he has to just wait to be purified and then he brings his karbanos. So now Rami Bar Chama's question is, let's say he finds out about it after the Malos. Do we follow the Basar Yediyah Azlin? Do we follow when he finds out about it? And so therefore, according to the Rabbanan, he'd have to wait another 30 days. Well, what does it matter then? Or do we say he follows? So it's really only a question according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says you only have to wait a week if you find out after Malos. But you had actually become Tamei before. So the Gemara says, Ulamai. So what is this a question? Who's Rami Bar Chama asking this question to? A mister. So we want to know if they mess up his count, does he mess up 7 or 30 days? So Amarava, so on top of 63b, Tashma, Imad Shlo Gilech. So let's bring a proof from our Mishnah. If he finds out about the 63b at the top, if he finds out about this before he takes his haircut, if he finds out about the tumas tahom before he takes his haircut, benkach or benkach soser, he's going to mess up his count, whether or not it was tumas tahom or regular tahom. Now, what's the scenario of our Mishnah? If you found out about the tumah within the 30 days, obviously he messes up his Nazirus. He touched a dead body and he found out about it within his Nazirus. So it must be he found out about it before he got his haircut, but after he finished his 30 days. So it must be after that. And we still say either way he messes up his count. Shema mina. So we see from here that he messes up his count if he finds out about it after Malos, even though he became Tamei during the 30 days. But the Gemara says, you have the place ups? We're in the top of 63b. But we still have the question, Kulo soser or Shiva soser. When he says he finds out about it after the 30 days, but before he gets his before he brings his sacrifices, is he messing up 30 days or 7 days? So again, according to the Rabbanan, he's for sure going to mess up 30 days because they say anything after Malos before your haircut, you messed up 30 days. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, he says you only mess up 7 days after Malos. But maybe in this case where the tumah happened prior to the 30 days being finished. It's just you're finding out about it after the 30 days. Maybe here he's going to say it's not soser shiva, but soser shlosha. Maybe here I'll say you're not messing up 7, but you're messing up 30. So the Gemara says, according to whom? According to the Rabbanan, for sure they're going to mess up 30 days because the tumah happened prior to the completion of the Nazirus. So for sure, it doesn't matter. They would say even if the tumah happened after the 30 days, you'd still mess up 30 days. Here, the tumah happened prior to the 30 days. So for sure you mess up the 30 days. According to Rabbi Eliezer, shiva soser. But Rabbi Eliezer says that anything after the melos, it messes you up only for 7 days. So Gemara says, yeah, but we're asking according to Rabbi Eliezer. Excuse me. Hani, when does Rabbi Eliezer say you mess up 7 days? Maybe he only says you only mess up 7 days when you actually became tamei after the 30 days. Maybe only then does he say you mess up only 7 days. But here he had actually become tamei within the 30 days. He just found out about it after the 30 days. Odilma shaniacha diadiachar melosi. But maybe this case is different because since he knew about it after the melos, it's like he became tamei after the melos, and so therefore he's messed up for only 7 days. So Gemara says, let's learn out from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, ben kach soser, if he finds out about it prior to the haircut, if he finds out about the tumah of the tahom prior to the haircut, we're going to say ben kach soser, whether he finds out about it from tumas tahom or from regular tumah, it's going to mess it up. And the Mishnah doesn't distinguish when the tumah happened. The Mishnah says it only depends upon when you knew about it. That if the knowledge about it had been prior to the haircut, it's going to be soser. And so we see that would be the same law, whether the tumah was within his nazirus or whether if the tumah was after the melos. Nevertheless, it's soser. And so therefore, we're going to say in this case, Rabbi Eliezer is going to stay consistent with his position that you're only soser 7 days. And so therefore, that's the Gemara's answer. Welcome if we don't draw a distinction. Tana Rabbanan. So now the Gemara is going to say a Tosefta, which a lot of it we've already discussed, as follows. Hamod se meis mutolarach. Well, let's see you find the dead body lying across the road, and you had presumably passed over it, and you presumably we're talking about a case of tumas tahom. The dead body hadn't been visible when you passed over it. With truma, according to truma, we're not going to care, and we're going to say that you can't eat truma, and if you touch truma, it's tamei. Uben Nazir, v'osa pesach. Let's say you are Nazir, or let's say you ate your carbon pesach and want to know whether or not you have to redo your pesach. We're going to say tahor. We're going to say that for Nazir, or if you ate your pesach, we're going to have considered you tahor. When do we say that you're tamei for the truma where you had no place where you could pass by the dead body without touching it? But if it's theoretically possible where you could have passed by that street without hitting the dead body, then aflo truma tahor. Then we'll say, even with respect to truma, we'll say you're tahor. When do we say this? Shematzo shalim. When the dead body was found whole and intact and you couldn't pass over it. But let's say the dead body was not intact, it was broken up, then we're going to say tamei. Even if there would have been no place to pass, then we can say that maybe you're tahor because maybe you passed amongst the parts of the body and you're tahor. And let's say the dead body was enclosed in a grave. Then even if it was broken into pieces, we'll say that if you passed over it's tamei, because the grave combined it into one. When do we say this halachos that you pass by it and it's not tamei? That's where you're walking on your feet. Avaton or rachov tamei. But if you are carrying something or you're riding on a wagon, we're going to say you're tamei if you passed over it, even though there was place to pass by or if it was broken up. Because if somebody walks across the road with his feet, it's possible it's possible that he didn't touch it, or he didn't move it, or he didn't make like a tent, like cover it over with his body. But if he's carrying something or he's riding on a wagon, and it's impossible. He would have in some way either covered over the dead body or moved it or touched it, and so therefore he'll have the tumah transmitted from the dead body. When do we say this? B'tumas tahom. When is our Mishnah saying that if he crossed over the dead body on the street, then we're going to say that you're not tamei by a Nazir and a Pesach, only by what's called tumas tahom, if the dead body was not known. Aval tumah yedua. But if it was known, if the dead body was visible, if we knew the dead body was there, shloshim tameim, then even the Nazir and the Pesach will become tamei. Be'ezu tumas tahom. What's the definition of this tumas tahom? Kol she'im makira echad b'sof ha'olam, that nobody knows about it. Makira echad b'sof ha'olam, but if somebody knows about it, ein zu tumas tahom, then it's not going to be considered tumas tahom. If somebody knows about it anywhere, it's not considered tumas tahom. Hayotaman b'taven. Let's say the dead body was covered over with straw, or b'tzroros, or with pebbles. Arezu tumas tahom. Then we're going to say that this is indeed considered tumas tahom because it's covered up. So this supports Rashi's position, as we saw before. What's tumas tahom? Tumah that's covered up. Let's say the dead body was in the water or in the dark area, in kikei slime, or in the cracks in the rocks. Ain't tumas tahom. Then we're going to say it's not considered tumas tahom because then it was visible. Below Amro, tumas tahom el ameis bovad. Where is this tumah of the dead body? Where is this leniency? Only for the dead body alone. The tumas tahom is only leniency as relates to dead body, but it doesn't apply to other tumos like tumah of ziva, or it doesn't apply to other tumas. So this is today's daf yomi, but we're going to continue it. We're going to continue on the Zoom.